There are rooms where people do not need to shout to be cruel. The Golden Crane was one of those rooms. Crystal lights hung over black marble floors. Gold walls reflected faces that had never worried about rent, hunger, or being spoken to like furniture. And in the center of that room stood Zahara, the woman everyone thought was just the cook. Her hands still smelled of ginger, roasted garlic, and smoke from the kitchen fire. Her apron was clean, her back was straight. But every eye in the restaurant was on her, like she had committed a crime by stepping out of the kitchen. Selene sat at the largest table, wrapped in champagne satin and diamonds, smiling like she had just discovered a new form of entertainment. She lifted one finger toward Zahara. "Apologize," she said. Zahara did not move. Selene's smile sharpened. "Not to me, to my guests, for ruining the atmosphere." The room went quiet. In that awful way rooms get quiet when everyone knows something is wrong, but no one wants to be the first decent person. Mara, the owner everyone recognized, stood near the bar with her hands pressed together. Vela, the young waitress, looked down at the floor. Kale, Selene's fiancé, pretended to check his watch. And Zahara just stood there, silent. Not weak, not confused, waiting. Selene leaned back in her chair. "People like her should know where they belong," she said, soft enough to sound elegant, loud enough for everyone to hear. A spoon hit a plate somewhere. No one spoke. Then the front doors opened. Not loudly. That was the strange part. The doors simply opened, and every conversation died before the first man stepped inside. Taewon entered in a black coat that moved like shadow. Behind him came Junho and 3 men in dark suits, silent as midnight. No one announced him. No one had to. Kale's face lost its color. Mara covered her mouth. Selene turned, ready to charm whoever had stolen her audience. But Taewon was not looking at her. He was looking at Zahara. And for the first time that night, the cook's perfect stillness cracked, just a little, like the sound of ice under pressure. Taewon stopped in front of Selene's table. He did not bow. He did not smile. He only said one sentence. "You chose the wrong woman to humiliate." Selene laughed once, because her body had not yet learned to be afraid. "I'm sorry," she said. "Do you know the cook?" Taewon's eyes did not leave Zahara. "I know who owns this room." And that was when everyone looked back at the woman in the apron. Not because she moved, because suddenly she did not look like staff anymore. She looked like a secret that had finally decided to breathe. Before that night, most people at the Golden Crane knew Zahara by 3 things. She arrived before sunrise, she left after midnight, and she never answered disrespect with disrespect. At 5 every morning, when the city was still gray and wet, Zahara unlocked the kitchen door with a key no one knew she had owned long before Mara did. She tied her hair back, she sharpened her knives. She read the delivery slips, checked the private reservations, and listened. That was what no one understood. Zahara was not hiding from power. She was listening for it. Years ago, Oren had built the Golden Crane as more than a restaurant. On paper, it served tasting menus to politicians, investors, and old families with old secrets. But beneath the velvet booths and wine lists, it had been neutral ground. A place where dangerous people could sit across from each other and pretend civilization was stronger than greed. Then Oren died, and everything began to rot quietly. Mara became the public owner. Kale began visiting with lawyers. Men in expensive coats started asking for old storage rooms and private ledgers. And Zahara stayed in the kitchen, letting everyone believe she was only there because she needed a wage. That was the first mistake. Zahara had a mission before Selene ever walked in. She was searching for the person who betrayed Oren. Not with speeches, with receipts, guest lists, hidden recordings. the way men lowered their voices when they thought the cook could not understand the language of money. And if you are watching from a city where restaurants have secrets of their own, drop your city in the comments, because I promise you, some places look quiet only because the walls are trained not to talk. On the morning of Selene's engagement dinner, Zahara found something strange in the reservation file. The private room had been booked under Selene's name, but the payment had come through one of Kale's shell companies. And attached to the booking was a sealed dining request, written in a code Oren had taught her years ago. 3 words: Crane at midnight. Zahara stared at the screen until the kitchen noise faded around her. Then she removed a small black envelope from behind a loose tile near the pantry. Inside was Oren's last instruction: when the right monster enters, do not run. Let them show their teeth. Selene arrived at 8:15, 20 minutes late, which told Zahara almost everything she needed to know. People who respect a room enter carefully. People who think they own it make everyone wait. Selene floated through the doors in champagne satin, one hand resting on Kale's arm, the other flashing diamonds under the chandelier light. Her guests followed her in a wave of perfume, laughter, and expensive boredom. Mara greeted them with the smile of a woman trying to keep a candle alive in a storm. "Welcome to the Golden Crane," Mara said. "We are honored to host your engagement dinner." Selene looked around slowly. "It's smaller than I expected." Mara's smile trembled. Kale squeezed Selene's hand, but not with affection, with warning. Zahara watched from the narrow kitchen window. She noticed Kale's jaw tightening when he saw the private booth. She noticed the man at the end of the table refusing wine. She noticed the leather folder under Kale's chair. But Selene noticed Zahara. And something about Zahara's stillness irritated her. The first complaint came with the soup. Selene lifted the spoon, tasted almost nothing, and set it down. "Is the cook new?" Mara folded her hands. "Zahara has been with us for years." "How brave." A few guests laughed because rich people sometimes laugh before deciding whether something is funny. Vela stepped forward to clear a plate, but Selene held up one finger. "No, bring the cook." Vela froze. "The chef is busy preparing the next course." Selene looked at her like she had heard a child speak out of turn. "I did not ask where she was. I asked you to bring her." In the kitchen, the staff went quiet. Zahara wiped her hands on a clean towel and walked out. Not fast, not slowly. Exactly as if she had known this moment had been coming for years. Selene looked Zahara up and down. That was the second insult, though no words had been used yet. "So you made this?" "Yes," Zahara said. Selene tilted her head. "Do you always cook like you're angry at the ingredients?" No one laughed this time. Zahara's face did not change. "I can prepare something else."
"Oh, I'm sure you can." Selene tapped her glass. "But first, I want you to explain why a restaurant like this has someone like you hidden in the back and still can't get dinner right." Zahara felt the room lean toward her pain. That was the trick of public humiliation. It did not only hurt because someone struck you, it hurt because everyone else watched and weighed the cost of helping. Zahara looked at Kale. He looked away. And in that tiny movement, she knew. He was not only guilty, he was afraid of what she might recognize. By 9 o'clock, Selene had stopped pretending the dinner was about love. It was about rank. Every sentence she spoke placed someone above someone else, her guests above the staff, her taste above the kitchen, her money above the room. And Zahara let her continue. That was what made Selene reckless. Cruel people hate silence because it refuses to confirm their power. Selene asked Zahara to pour water, then to replace a napkin, then to describe every dish while standing beside the table like a servant being inspected. Mara whispered, "Zahara, you do not have to." But Zahara only said, "It is all right." It was not all right. It was evidence. Kale's folder was still under the chair. The man refusing wine had touched his cuff 3 times, a signal Zahara had seen before in Oren's old meetings.
And Selene, with every careless insult, was buying Zahara more time. Around the 12-minute mark of this story, this is where I need to ask you something honestly. Do you think Selene was just spoiled? Or do you think she knew exactly what she was doing? Put spoiled or calculated in the comments, because by the end, one of those answers will feel terrifying. Then Selene made the mistake that turned the night. She asked about Oren, not kindly. She lifted her glass and said, "Wasn't there an old man who used to own this place? I heard he had better taste." Mara went pale. Vela stopped breathing. Zahara's eyes lowered for half a second, only half, but Kale saw it. And Selene saw Kale seeing it. Her smile widened. "Oh," Selene said, "did I touch something sentimental?" Zahara's voice was quiet. "Oren built this restaurant." Selene glanced around at the gold walls, the black marble, the crane carved into the ceiling. Then maybe he should have trained his staff better before leaving it behind. Something inside Zahara went very still. Not empty, not broken. Still like a match held just before flame. And then the front doors opened. This time, even Selene heard the silence arrive before the footsteps. Taewon walked in like a man the city had already learned not to question. Junho moved behind him, eyes scanning the room. Every server stepped back. Every guest pretended not to stare. Kale stood so quickly his chair scraped the marble. "Taewon," he said. Taewon did not answer him. He looked at Zahara, and in his face something almost human passed through the cold. Regret, recognition, and a warning. Selene recovered first. People like her usually do. Not because they are brave, but because they mistake attention for safety. She smiled at Taewon and lifted her glass. "I was wondering when someone important would arrive." Taewon looked at the glass, then at her. "Were you?" The warmth drained from her face. Kale stepped forward. "This is private." "No," Taewon said. "It became public when your fiancé insulted the owner." The word owner moved through the room like a blade wrapped in silk. Selene blinked. "I insulted Mara?" Mara shook her head before she could stop herself. Taewon turned slightly. "No." Then he looked at Zahara. The entire room followed his gaze. Zahara did not want the reveal yet. That was the truth. She had spent years becoming invisible on purpose, and now Taewon was pulling light toward her before she had chosen to stand in it. Her thoughts moved fast beneath her calm face. Not yet. Not before the folder. Not before Kale signs. But Taewon saw the warning in her eyes and gave the smallest nod. He understood. So he changed the angle of the knife. "Kale," Taewon said, "bring me the folder." Kale's mouth opened, but no sound came. Selene looked between them. "What folder?" No one answered. Junho moved before Kale could decide whether to lie. He reached under the chair, lifted the leather folder, and placed it on the table with careful hands. The sound was soft. It landed like thunder. Selene stared at Kale. "Tell me that is not business paperwork at our engagement dinner." Kale swallowed. "It is complicated." Zahara almost laughed. Complicated was the word weak men used when they wanted betrayal to sound intelligent. Taewon opened the folder. Inside were transfer papers for the golden crane. Mara whispered, "No." Selene's face changed. Not shock, calculation. That was when Zahara knew the answer to the comment question. Selene had known enough. Maybe not everything, but enough to enjoy the cruelty. And that is why this moment should make you angry. Because she did not insult Zahara by accident. She insulted her while standing inside a trap meant to steal everything Oren left behind. If that does not make your blood hot, I do not know what will. Selene stood. Her chair slid back. "I don't know what game this is," she said, "but I will not be embarrassed by kitchen staff and criminals." The word criminals made the room colder. Taewon's men did not move. That was worse than if they had. Zahara stepped forward. For the first time, she came between Taewon and Selene. Do not call people criminals when your signature is waiting on stolen paper. Selene looked at her as if the floor had spoken. Excuse me? Zahara reached into the folder and removed the final page. There it was, Selene's name, already signed. The dining room breathed in all at once. Kale closed his eyes. Selene's lips parted, and Zahara finally understood why Oren had told her to wait for the right monster. Because monsters do not only destroy. Sometimes, when they think no one can stop them, they confess by reaching for what was never theirs. Selene tried to laugh. It came out thin. You expect these people to believe a cook owns this restaurant? Zahara looked at the page in her hand, then at Mara, then at the carved golden crane above the dining room. She untied her apron. The simple knot slipped loose. No one moved. She folded the apron once, carefully, respectfully, and placed it on the table. Under the chef coat was black silk, not loud, not decorated, just elegant enough to make every insult Selene had thrown at her feel suddenly foolish. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Vela covered her mouth. Taewon lowered his gaze, not because she was beneath him, but because in that moment he was giving her the room. Zahara spoke softly. My name is Zahara. Oren did not leave the golden crane to Mara. He asked Mara to protect it until I was ready to return. Selene shook her head. No. Zahara placed the signed page beside the original ownership certificate. Taewon removed from inside his coat. Yes. Taewon looked at Selene then, and his voice became the thing people feared about him. Not volume, certainty. The woman you ordered to pour your water is the legal owner of this restaurant. The woman you mocked for standing in the kitchen is the reason this room still exists. And the woman you told to apologize is the only person here with the power to decide what happens next. There it was, the promise of the night. The cook was not powerless. The cook was not invisible. The cook owned the room. And Selene knew it. Her face changed in stages. First confusion, then denial. Then the terrible calculation of a woman trying to locate the nearest exit from her own cruelty. I had no idea, Selene said. Zahara looked at her. That was why you felt safe. The words landed quietly, but they broke something louder than a shout. Selene's eyes shone, not with remorse, but with fear. Kale tried to step in. Zahara, we can fix this. She turned to him. You do not get to use my name like we are negotiating. He stopped. The room belonged to her now. Not because Taewon gave it to her, because he revealed what had already been true. And right here, after the truth finally hit the table, this is the moment. I want you to subscribe if you believe quiet people are not weak people. Because stories like this are never really about revenge. They are about the second someone realizes they underestimated the wrong soul. Mara stepped forward. I am sorry, she whispered to Zahara. Zahara's expression softened. You kept the doors open. Mara shook her head. I should have protected you from this. Zahara looked around the room, at Vela, at the cooks watching from the kitchen entrance, at the servers who had swallowed disrespect for years because survival often looks like silence from the outside. You did, Zahara said. You kept everyone alive long enough for the truth to arrive. For one breath, warmth entered the room. Then Taewon's phone vibrated, only once. Junho looked down at the screen first. His face changed. Taewon took the phone, read the message, and the little softness Zahara had just seen in him disappeared. Zahara knew before he spoke. The night was not over. Taewon turned the screen toward her. A message from Daesung. Tell Zahara the kitchen was never her hiding place. It was her cage. The message did not frighten Zahara, it offended her. There is a kind of anger that burns hot and wild, and there is another kind that becomes clean, focused, almost calm. Zahara felt the second kind. Your father knew, she said. Taewon did not answer quickly enough. That was answer enough. The room began to blur around Zahara. Selene, Kale, the guests, the lights. For years, she had believed Oren hid her in the kitchen because danger was outside. But Daesung's message said something worse. Maybe danger had been watching her from the beginning. Taewon stepped closer. Zahara. She looked at him, not as the man who had defended her, as the man who might have helped build the walls around her. How long? His jaw tightened. I knew he feared your name. That is not what I asked. The silence between them hurt more than Selene's insults, because Selene's cruelty had been easy to recognize. Taewon's secrecy had once looked like protection. Kale saw the fracture immediately. Desperate people can smell division. He took one step back, then another. Junho noticed. So did Zahara. Kale grabbed Selene's wrist. We are leaving. Selene hissed, let go of me. You signed the papers, he said under his breath. You are in this now. The words were quiet, but the room heard them. Selene turned on him with pure panic. You told me it was a formality. You told me you wanted power. Zahara watched them collapse into the truth. There was no love at that table, only appetite wearing formal clothes. Taewon signaled Junho to block the exit, but Zahara raised one hand. No. Everyone looked at her. She turned to Kale. Let him speak. Kale stared at her. You don't understand what Daesung will do. Zahara took one slow step closer. Then explain it. For the first time all night, Kale looked less afraid of Taewon than of Zahara. Because Taewon might punish him. Zahara might understand him. And being understood by the person you betrayed is its own kind of judgment. Kale swallowed. Oren was not killed because of money. Mara made a small broken sound. Kale continued. He was killed because he was going to name Zahara publicly, not just as owner, as successor to the old alliance. Zahara's breath caught. The old alliance. Oren had mentioned it once, years ago, when rain hammered the windows and he thought she was asleep. A bridge between families. A promise that power did not have to be inherited through fear. Taewon closed his eyes. And Zahara knew. He had heard those words before too. For one beautiful minute, it looked like the story had ended. Zahara had the documents, Kale had confessed enough. Selene had been exposed in front of the same room where she tried to make another woman small. Mara was crying. Vela was smiling through tears. Even the cooks at the kitchen door stood a little taller. Then the private room doors opened. A server came out holding a small black box that no one remembered bringing in. On top was the golden crane symbol. Not Oren's crane, Daesung's. Junho moved first, but Taewon stopped him. Zahara walked to the box herself. Inside was a photograph. Old, creased, faded at the corners. Oren, Daesung, Taewon, and Zahara. Younger, unsure, standing between worlds she had not yet learned to fear. On the back was written one line. The alliance lives if she stays hidden. Zahara looked at Taewon. His face told her he had seen the photograph before. The false ending broke in her hands. Selene suddenly laughed. Not because anything was funny, because panic needed somewhere to go. You hear that? She said to the room. She is one of them. This woman is not some innocent cook. She is part of their world. No one answered. So Selene tried harder. She lied to all of you. She wore an apron and played humble while sitting on a throne. Zahara stared at her. It would have been easy to deny it. Easy to say she wanted no part of old alliances, buried deals, or dangerous names whispered behind closed doors. But denial would have been another cage. Selene pointed at Zahara. You should all be afraid of her. And for the first time, Zahara smiled, a small smile, a sad one. You are. That silenced her. Taewon stepped forward, but Zahara lifted her hand again. He stopped. That was when everyone understood the power in the room had changed shape. Taewon was dangerous, but Zahara was the decision. The crisis was simple and impossible. If Zahara exposed Daesung publicly, the restaurant would become a battlefield of reputations, debts, and old loyalties. Staff who had nothing to do with Orn's past could suffer for standing too close to her truth. If she stayed silent, Orn's killers remained protected. If Taewon stood with her, he betrayed his father. If he stepped away, he betrayed her. Zahara looked at the kitchen doors. That was where she had hidden. That was where she had survived. That was where everyone assumed she belonged. Then she looked at the dining room. That was where power had been eating from her plates while planning to erase her name. She could feel Orn's voice in her memory. Do not become cruel to prove you are strong. Do not become silent to prove you are good. Zahara turned to Taewon. Choose now. The room held its breath. Taewon looked toward the black box, toward the old photograph, toward the invisible shadow of his father, then back at Zahara. And just before he answered, this is where I want your prediction. What would you do if choosing the truth meant losing your family? Comment truth or blood before the ending, because Taewon's choice changes everything. Taewon did not answer with words, at least not at first. He stepped away from his men, away from Junho, away from the invisible hand of Daesung. Then he lowered himself to one knee in front of Zahara. The restaurant gasped. Selene's mouth fell open. Kale whispered something that sounded like a prayer. But Zahara did not move. She knew what this was. Not romance, not theater. Allegiance. Taewon looked up at her. My father taught me that blood is the first law, he said. Oren taught me that truth is older than blood. His voice did not shake, but something inside it bled. I choose truth. Junho was the next to move. He stepped forward and lowered his head. Then Mara, then Vila. Then, slowly, the kitchen staff came out one by one, standing behind Zahara, not because they understood every secret, but because they understood enough. They had seen who humiliated. They had seen who protected. They had seen who stayed calm when cruelty begged her to become cruel back. Selene looked around and realized the room she had tried to command had become a witness against her. No, Selene said. It was small, almost childlike. Zahara looked at her then, really looked at her. Beneath the satin, the diamonds, the cruelty, there was fear. Not the kind that deserved pity enough to erase what she had done, but the kind that explained it. Selene had spent her life trying to never be the woman in the corner, so she became the woman pointing at someone else. Zahara did not forgive her. Forgiveness was not a performance for strangers, but she did something Selene did not expect. She refused to become her. You will leave this restaurant, Zahara said. Your signed document will be turned over to legal counsel. Your guests may decide for themselves what kind of woman they celebrated tonight.
Selene's eyes filled. You can't ruin me. Zahara's voice stayed gentle. I am not ruining you. I am returning your behavior to you. Kale moved suddenly toward the side exit. Junho blocked him without touching him. Taewon stood. Kale, he said. The single name stopped him. Kale's shoulders sagged. Zahara walked to him with the signed page. You wanted my inheritance, she said. Now you will give me Oren's truth. Kale looked at Taewon, then at Zahara, and finally understood that there was no weaker person left in the room to sacrifice. So he spoke. Taesung ordered the silence, he said, but he did not act alone. The restaurant went still again. Zahara's hand tightened around the page. Who helped him? Kale looked toward the kitchen. Mara turned pale. Vela whispered, "No." And Zahara knew the answer before he said it. Someone Oren trusted, Kale said. Mara began to shake her head. "Not me," she whispered. "Zahara, not me." Zahara believed her, immediately. That was the strange mercy of real love. You could feel when it was afraid, and you could feel when it was guilty. Mara was terrified, but not guilty. Then the kitchen clock struck 10, a sound Zahara had heard every night for years. Only now it seemed too loud. Vela stepped backward, her face had gone white. From her apron pocket something slipped and hit the floor. A brass key. Old. Oren's pantry key. The key Zahara thought had been lost the night he died. Everyone looked at Vela. The young waitress started crying before anyone accused her. "I didn't know what had opened," she said. "My mother gave it to me before she disappeared. She said if the crane ever rose again, I had to give it to Zahara." Zahara picked up the key. Her anger shifted into something colder. Not at Vela, at the years stolen from all of them. Taewon looked at the key, and for the first time all night, fear crossed his face. Zahara saw it. "Taewon," she said quietly, "what does this open?" He did not answer, and that silence became the next door. By midnight, the golden crane was quiet again, but it was not the same quiet. Selene left through the front doors with no cameras waiting, no laughter around her, and no power left in her posture. Kale was taken to a private room with Junho and a recorder. Mara sat with Vela in the kitchen, holding the young woman while she cried. And Zahara stood alone at the center of the dining room, holding Oren's key. Taewon waited near the bar. For once, he looked less like a king of shadows and more like a man who had reached the edge of his own lies. "You knew about the key," Zahara said. "I knew it existed." "That is not an answer." "No," he said. "It is the safest truth I can give you tonight." Zahara almost smiled, but it hurt too much. Safe truths are still cages. He lowered his eyes. She walked past him into the kitchen. Behind the loose pantry tile, beneath the place where she had kept Oren's old envelope, the brass key fit into a lock she had never seen before. Inside was a final sealed letter, her name written on it in Oren's hand. Zahara opened it. 6 words waited on the page. Taewon knows more than he confessed. For a moment, she could not hear the restaurant, only her own breathing, only the old ache of realizing protection and betrayal can sometimes wear the same face. She turned. Taewon stood at the kitchen entrance. He did not ask what the letter said. That was how she knew he already feared it. Zahara folded the paper once. Then she looked at the man who had chosen truth in front of everyone, but hidden one final piece of it from her. Outside, rain began to tap against the windows, soft, patient, like the past asking to be let in. And before this story closes, share it with someone who loves seeing underestimated women rise without losing their soul. Because Zahara's victory was real, but her peace was not. The woman Selene disrespected had finally been revealed. The only question left was whether the man who revealed her had also been the man who buried the truth. And if you want part 2, comment "Open the letter," because what Zahara finds next changes everything.